What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Trench Talk. We got a super exciting episode here because, we woke up this morning and I think the first thing I opened my eyes to was the news of the century.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's an overreaction, but
Davantae
Adams.
It's definitely the biggest news this year
to the
of
Jets.
the NFL season. Yeah, to the Jets. Yeah. Are we not sticking with our rules though?
What rules? Oh yeah, I was going to do introductions. I'm Christian.
Well, no.
This is Logan.
I thought that whoever loses in fantasy doesn't get the right to talk for the rest of the episode, and it's just a one-man show.
Okay.
For those of you that don't know, Christian got demolished by my team in fantasy.
I think there was like 2 minutes left in that Bengals game. I was up by 1 point. And then old cool Joe Burrow decided to throw a 30-yard pass. Lost me the week.
Yeah. There you go. Now Christian sit 1-5. 1-5 right now.
1-5 with a top half scoring offense and the most points against scored by over 100.
Well, CeeDee Lamb or the CD's Nuts team is sitting at a pretty 3-3, just like my Dallas Cowboys. But we're looking to get better when Davantae Adams starts playing on his new team.
That's right, the Jets. What do you think about this? I think I feel like I predicted this almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels kind of weird because you thought maybe he might go somewhere else, considering they fired their head coach. It's weird to see this come right after the Jets lose last night. And
maybe that's why they picked him up. They're like, okay.
Like, we need him. Yeah. Honestly, though, is this what moves the needle for them? To get into the playoffs, maybe. But to get into the playoffs under an interim head coach would be kind of crazy, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, I don't know if this is... I think they are trying to make a push this year, but I think this season almost feels over for them. They
exactly
needed that win last night.
It honestly almost feels like even after last night, regardless of the loss, mm-hmm. you got Davantae Adams. It almost feels like letting Robert Saleh go. We might look back at it and be like, yeah, I don't know if they should have done that at that point. You get rid of your head coach, and now you trade for Davantae Adams?
Yeah, plus that was also after they took away play calling from Nathaniel Hackett as well.
Yeah.
Which I thought was the reason that they let go of Saleh anyways, because he wanted to take away the play calling from Nathaniel Hackett, and mm-hmm. then they just did it anyways. That organization's a mess right now. It's kind of crazy that Davantae even wanted to be there, but
I forget, was it his decision? Like, did he have a no trade clause, or do you remember? Because I feel like we talked about this last time, but I can't remember if he had a no trade clause or not, and he had a decision on where he wanted to go, or if the Raiders just were able to choose wherever.
Well, I think either way, I think all parties involved accepted it. We're okay with it.
Mm. Well, yeah. So the Raiders, they trade him to the Jets for a 3rd-round pick that can turn into a 2nd-round pick. So pretty much what they were asking for, pretty much what the Raiders were asking for from any suitor. And now Davantae Adams is a New York Jet.
Yeah,
and I believe the Raiders are going to pay the rest of his contract.
Yeah, I think I saw that as well.
Yeah. So, now I just got a notification too that Mike Williams might be on the trading block for the Jets.
Yeah, because they don't really need him. You look at last game. We can talk about last night's game.
Yeah. Did you see?
Aaron Rodgers looked pretty good, actually. Yeah. And Allen Lazard playing very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even take out that Hail Mary touchdown, Allen Lazard played really well. Mm-hmm. And with Mike Williams, if you're able to watch that game at all, you might see it on Twitter too. there was that play at the end of the game where Mike Williams slips, and it's kind of a little bit of an underthrown ball as well, but that ends up being an interception that seals the deal pretty much. That did seal the deal for the Jets.
Yeah. And, I mean, is there even a need for him if you bring Davantae Adams into a receiving room that has Garrett Wilson already, has Alan Lazard, who seems to have great chemistry with Aaron Rodgers? It's like you're the number 4 or 5.
Yeah, and both running backs are very capable as well. We saw that with Breece Hall last night. Not as much with Braylon Allen, but also they have a pretty solid. Like, honestly, if I had to build a team and they're like, okay, you have to get a tight end that is not great, nor is he bad. He's just good, and he's there. That's Tyler Conklin for me. He's probably like the most average tight end you can get. That's like, you're not mad about him being on your team, but also like doesn't really move the needle that much. But puts together the offense.
Stereotypical blocking tight end. It's like,
yeah,
we'll bring him in on these sets that we need to push Breece Hall along.
But yeah, we want to talk about that game a little bit. Moving off of that the breaking news that we woke up to, which actually, I'm still waking up this morning. I'm sitting on my TikTok grind, doom scrolling, still getting the crusties out of my eyes, and I get a text from Christian that just says, "What?" Or what'd you say? Did you say, "Bro"?
I think I said,
Yeah, and I was like,
well, this guy doesn't have Ian Rappaport's notifications on.
Yeah, well, you said that, and I went to Adam Schefter, and he didn't have anything.
Was not awake yet. Schefter's snoozing.
Yeah. But
that's why I have both of theirs on, because occasionally you'll have news like this where Ian's on it and
good old rap sheet
gone. Yeah,
rap sheet was up. Ari was a minute or two after you texted me, but I'm waking. He texted me. I honestly think I have to drive all the way to Minnesota and bail this guy out of jail. That's what I thought that text was.
Tuesday morning.
I mean, I don't know. I've been it's probably because I've been watching too many cop cam videos, as I typically do. You know me, I'm a big fan of those, but I've been watching a little bit too many of those.
Yeah. Well, you know me. I never get into any trouble, so.
No, never.
Anyways, who did get into trouble? The refs last night.
Yes, so I have them on my worst performances. It's bad when you have even Aaron Rodgers coming out, not, talking about the refs, about the calls that they missed, but he was criticizing them for even roughing the passer calls on him that he said were not roughing the passer. There were like some legitimately called penalties for sure, but both teams ended with 11 penalties last night for a total of 204 yards. There was holding, there was, roughing the passer calls. It was bad.
I feel like most of those came at like the end of the game too, where it's like, I think I saw Schefter tweet out. I think he was like, flag per play at this point.
Yep. That second half took significantly longer to play out than the first, and it really wasn't as exciting as the first half. Bills take that one. I believe final score was 23-20. Jets, like I said, they had a chance to win that, but Rodgers throws that pick, and it's kind of on both ends. Mike Williams slips. He still tries to make a play on it while he's on the ground, but it's kind of underthrown as well. And the safety, I believe, Tyron Johnson might be the name of the safety. He snagged that ball. He made a great play.
Yes. Taron Johnson. There we go. And Jets sitting at 2-4. They bring in Davantae Adams, but you're 2-4. You have an interim head coach. It doesn't really seem like the path's going to get any easier for them.
I'll tell you what, though, I am really excited now with how Drake May played in his debut. I know he throws some interceptions in there. He didn't look amazing, but against the Texans, kind of makes it more interesting for this AFC East division, where Buffalo, I think, is probably going to run away with it. But these matchups between the Jets and the Patriots become even more interesting now because the Patriots defense has not been that bad, if I'm being honest. Hasn't been that bad.
And then you bring the Dolphins in the mix too. I mean,
okay, well, we don't.
Well, Tua comes back because we did hear this week. Mike McDaniel said that I don't think he's going to give like an exact time frame, but I think it's going to be here in the near future. He's going to play this season.
Yeah, like I think he's able to return to practice or at least to like team stuff next week. I believe that's what it is. And they need him. I mean, they're very thankful. They were on a bye this week, right?
Yes.
So they're lucky that came at that point because any more games that they have to start with Tyler Huntley and Skylar Thompson, they're losing those games.
Yeah, and they're only 2 wins off the Bills. I mean, they're sitting above the Jets right now in the standings. So it kind of is like anybody's division still. I mean, the Bills clearly look like the best team in there, but if they can't get complacent, they can't slip up.
Yeah, I think I got a little too down on the Bills after last week when they lost to who'd they lose to last week? Was it the Ravens? I want to say.
Yeah, there was the Texans.
It was the Texans, yeah.
But they got blown out by the Ravens the week before.
Yes. When they lose those 2 games, I was kind of getting down on them. I was like, oh, is Josh Allen really an MVP candidate? You know, are the Bills really that good? Again, it was against the Jets last night, but that's a good Jets defense, and they kind of returned to form last night on the road. So I'm still riding pretty high on the Bills after last night.
Yeah, and I mean, they lost to – losing the Ravens isn't that bad currently because
but
MVP candidates, Lamar Jackson is probably ahead of the pack right now.
Maybe.
Unfortunately. Well, he's playing better than he was last year when he won the MVP. So.
Well, Baker Mayfield's playing better than him right now. So.
Yep, and only one of them threw 3 interceptions in their game.
Well, only one of them is leading the league in passing touchdowns. So,
but we saw that didn't matter at all last year.
That's true because of Dak Prescott,
and Brock Purdy. Anyways,
where do we want to move to next?
If you want to talk about Baker so bad, let's.
Yeah, we can move to that game because that ends up on that. From that game, they both one performance ends up on your best, one ends up on my worst. I guess I'll hit on Baker real quick. You know, when he throws 3 interceptions, I believe those all came in the second quarter. I thought, well, this game is probably over. This Baker is probably going to end up throwing 5 interceptions this game. And Saints score all 27 of their points in that second quarter. You think it's going to be over? Bucks at first. I'll track back. They started the game off. They went up 17-0. Then Saints scored 27 unanswered. And then the Saints are shut out in the second half. Bucks get things together. So my worst performance goes to the Saints defense in the first, third, and fourth quarter.
I mean, just you look at that play that the Saints defense had against Chris Godwin, who's on my best performance, where they had what? Chris Godwin was on the opposite 40 and ran in it for a touchdown past like 4 defenders who each touched him or were in front of him 2 yards up.
Yeah.
It's like
we were watching that game a little bit before we got on here, and just to kind of hearken more on my defense, the Saints defense a little bit more, and then we could focus more on Chris Godwin, who had an amazing game. The Saints defense didn't even look like they wanted to tackle for the second half of that game. They
were scared.
No, yeah, they had what's his name? I'm blanking. Who was the running back from the Bucks that just popped off?
Sean Tucker.
Trey Tucker.
Sean Tucker.
Okay. He was running all over them. Guys like Marshawn Lattimore, Demario Davis did not want to tackle him. It pretty much did look like they were scared. So Bucks somehow edge out a win against the Saints and score 50 points after allowing 27. So we got to start paying more attention to the Bucs, in my opinion, because they were able to just kind of rebound after giving up 27 points. And Baker and the offense just looked incredible in the second half and in the first quarter.
Yeah, especially Chris Godwin. I mean, at this point, he seems like the number one receiver. This year, he's been playing a lot better than Mike Evans. I think we might not even see Mike Evans hit 1,000 yards this year, which
Okay, well, that's crazy talk.
he's only at 300 right now.
There's a lot of season left. What are we at? Week 6, so we got 11 games left. He needs 700 yards in 11 games. He can do that for sure. He's got one of the best quarterbacks in the league throwing him the rock.
I mean, he's on pace to get like 900 to 950. So,
I mean, you do have to think a lot of it is just defenses having to key in on Mike Evans. I mean, when you watch him play, I always knew he was great, but now that Baker's on the Bucs, I've been watching him, more religiously, I should say, actually. Rigorously. There we go. Not always best with the words, even as a journalist, but
religiously might actually be better there.
Yeah, religiously. I mean, I will say I don't think I've missed a Baker Mayfield game. I think for the last like 3 or 4 years, 4 years, I've watched every Baker Mayfield game. And for the past like 6 years, I haven't missed a Dallas Cowboys game. But regardless of that, Mike Evans is just super talented. And I really didn't understand that until I started to watch him. And I think that's just what defenses are keying in on right now.
Mm-hmm. We also got new breaking news, Russell Wilson is healthy now this week. So Mike Tomlin said there's a good chance that he starts over Justin Fields, which would be, looks like he's going to get the nod this week. Tough to see for Justin Fields, who's been having a great season so far.
So what I'm hearing by this, and the Steelers won last week against the Raiders, correct?
Yes, I think.
And Justin Fields didn't look
2 right now.
Justin Fields hasn't looked bad by any means, in my opinion. I think he's been running the offense pretty well. So what I'm hearing from this is that the original plan was for Russell Wilson to be the starter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe they're thinking that he can come in and be better than Fields in the offense. Although that's a huge if for them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're sitting at 4-2 right now. I understand that Russell Wilson brings something different to the offense, but personally, I think we've talked about this a couple times. I think there's a lot of situations where Russell Wilson might lose you these games. Now, maybe not against the Raiders, but in a couple of their other wins that they've had, I think you don't win those games unless you have Justin Fields, who isn't going to, air out the ball as much and make smarter decisions with the ball.
Yeah, and I honestly like what Justin Fields has been doing on the ground, just because, I mean, he has 10 total touchdowns right now.
Right.
To one interception.
You look at last week. Yeah, he went 14 for 24, but like they still won 32 to 13, I want to say it was.
Yeah, and this is going to have me scrambling I'm undefeated in one of my fantasy leagues, largely in part because Justin Fields has been having a great season. So,
yeah, I don't know if you're going to have to pick up Russell Wilson, apparently.
I think people already have him. Oh, might have to start Drake May.
Hey, could be good. But yeah, breaking news. Justin Fields to be benched for Russell Wilson. I don't think this is a good decision on the Steelers' part, but I guess we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think it's tough you have a quarterback playing well, and he's hot right now. It's kind of, you don't want to cool him off, especially coming off of a win.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you see him after a loss, but I guess they think that Russell Wilson can pilot this offense. I guess let him try it out. You know, they have who they have coming up. The Jets this weekend, so
Yep.
we'll have two different looking teams
Mm-hmm.
going up against each other, and we'll see whose season will continue to stay the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll be an interesting game now. I think, I wasn't really looking forward to it, but now with Davantae and maybe Russell Wilson, I hope Davantae starts that game. So
yeah, you're just gonna kind of like wonder how long it'll take him to like get into the system, or if they can get him involved right away.
And even Ari tweeted out, he was like, well, I guess the hamstring issue is not an issue anymore for Davantae Adams.
Yeah, missed the last couple of weeks with a hamstring. He's like, you know what? I just needed to be in New York. That'll cure me.
Yeah, well, it's also just like he came out and was like, I don't want to play for you, so I'm not going to.
So, invisible hamstring.
Yeah, that's like, when I'm not really wanting to go to the gym, I'm like, my neck's kind of sore. I got a hammy issue.
Yeah, my knees have been bugging me for the last 3 years. That's why I haven't had legs.
And it shows. Anyway,
all right.
We can. Where do you want to go to next, bud?
Well, can stick with the Ravens. No, I'm just kidding. I did watch, like, fully watched a couple games this week.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I'll catch, like, condensed games later, highlights, stat watch. It's kind of tough to, I was out of town, only had one screen, so I didn't have, like, the mega setup to watch every single game at once.
Yep.
But saw the Commanders-Ravens, which I think that's got to be, like, the game of the week. Huh?
Oh, for sure. I would definitely agree with that. Both offenses looking pretty good. Kind of surprising how Jaden Daniels is still looking this impressive so far this year. And yeah, 30-23. And this, I think, firmly cements Derrick Henry, like you mentioned earlier, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson into that MVP conversation early on in this season.
Yeah, I think what we saw is this team is the best team in the league. If, say what you want about, the Vikings have a great defense, but we've seen Sam Darnold kind of slipping here in the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs are undefeated, but your superstar quarterback hasn't really looked like a superstar.
And
the Ravens really are just go.
If you really want to look back, they're 5-0, but the Ravens are a toe away from being 5-1 and the Chiefs being 4-1. So
exactly. And the Ravens in the last few weeks since they started 0-2.
Mm-hmm.
Since then they've looked incredible.
Right.
They have the best rush offense in the league.
Lamar Jackson's thrown for over 300 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Like
what are we doing here?
I know. I can't believe it, but this is probably so far.
Defense is also looking really well. The Commanders were on fire, and a lot of that game they were just kind of putting Jaden Daniels into tough positions.
Yeah, and it helps that Brian Robinson wasn't able to play this week.
Mm-hmm.
He's still kind of getting injured. I had to help my dad out with his fantasy league for that.
Really?
And he was like, oh, Brian Robinson, I can't play him. And I'm like, so he pretty much just had to look at backup running backs to play. And I forget who he ended up going with, but I do feel bad because he was like, oh, what about this Ray Davis guy for the Bills? And he was like, oh, he's only gotten 4 points the last couple weeks. And then he kind of popped off last night for the Bills. So
I think he was the second highest waiver running back this week.
Yeah, sorry about that, Dad. But anyways, Lamar has 1,500 passing yards, 10 passing touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. This has to be one of the best starts he's had so far as a passer. And, he throws a touchdown to pick this week, but like I said, threw for over 300 yards. Derrick Henry rushes for over 100 yards on 24 carries, I want to say, 2 touchdowns. Their offense is just it's unstoppable. I think the only one that's been able to kind of stop it so far was the Chiefs.
Yeah, and that pick, I don't know if you saw it. It was pretty funny because I can't remember who was commentating this game actually. Gosh, it doesn't tell me, but they were Tony Romo. Tony Romo was on there because he mentioned, I think he said something like, the Washington Commanders have yet to intercept a ball this year. Like there's been 130 or 40 passes thrown against them. They defended really well. But they've yet to come down with the ball. And as he finished that sentence, Lamar Jackson let the ball fly through the air into the other hand's teams. I was like, oh, there's your interception. So commentators again just jinxing it.
Yeah, and this was kind of a game that reminded you. The last couple weeks have Lamar Jackson throws a really pretty ball. I mean, and his release is like not like you want to see other quarterbacks that are like coming up like in college replicate his release because it's just so quick, like effortlessly. It's almost like he flicks it every time.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just praising the soul out of Lamar Jackson when in years past, I've probably hated on him a little bit too much, but how can you not? This offense has just looked awesome. And the Commanders, even though they lost this game, this is still a valiant effort. I mean, Jaden Daniels still looked great. He had to be the leading rusher because Brian Robinson was out. Austin Eckler, you can't really use him that much, but it makes me more scared to go up against the Commanders because for the longest time, the Cowboys, we didn't have to take them seriously. But now I'm kind of starting to fear having to play them later this season.
Yeah, that's how I remembered that it was Tony Romo announcing the game because the amount of Commanders glaze was incredible. I mean, that man is on a different level. Probably rivaled only by Chris Collinsworth announcing a Chiefs game.
Well, if Chris Collinsworth is up here, that's a pretty high bar. I mean, Tony Romo's got to be all the way down here in terms of praise.
I don't know. I mean, the whole game, it was just like, wow, this Washington team is so good, bringing it back to like the early days of the Super Bowl era. He's like, oh, Jaden Daniels is just this other godly talent. Look at the way he throws the ball here. Look at this. And he's like, if the Commanders want a chance to get back into this game, and it's like, when are we going to talk about Lamar Jackson over here throwing 300 yards? Derrick Henry's ripping holes here and there.
Ripping holes.
But, yeah.
But yeah.
Jay Flowers even had a good game.
Yeah, but just a really good game, like you said. Probably the game of the week, in my opinion, as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess we can maybe stay in the NFC East and move to your team a little bit. I have on my worst performances Nick Sirianni, mainly for how he acted at the end of the game. And I've listened to a couple talk shows about this. So, yeah, he's talking shit to his own fans after they win, after they beat the Browns by 4. Which maybe it shouldn't have been that. It probably wouldn't have been that close if they don't block that field goal and Browns return it for a touchdown. By the way, that guy that returned it is tied for the most touchdowns on the team. And then Nick Sirianni, because he's scared of what the media is going to ask him. Well, I listened to his press conference, but also he brings his kids so that the media members, don't feel awkward asking him questions about his antics afterwards. And when he was asked about it, he just goes, just excited to win the game, just excited for the win. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm a media member, that's terrible. That's a terrible answer.
It's a great answer because we can read in between the lines.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I mean, it feels like he's pretty much, obviously he's on the hot seat. The team.
I think so too.
Team has looked pretty bad this year.
And even with, like, you're at home, I know it's AJ Brown's first game back. But even with
Mhm.
a fully loaded team now, like Lane Johnson was back too, you only put up 20 points against the Browns. They have a good
Yeah,
defense, but come on now,
yeah, and
20.
yeah, and I think he's just fired up. He's he's pretty much telling the fan base like, yeah, screw you, I still got my job. Like
Mhm.
it's
And he
that's a
did
tough
come
look
out.
for him.
He came out yesterday and he was like, "Oh yeah, my bad." With of course his kid's not there because he doesn't want to get asked real questions in front of his kids. He wants all the softballs, which whatever. And also as he tried to make a statement or whatever with his little shaved head action that he's got going on there. As someone that has shaved their head in the past, there's something wrong with that guy because you don't just come out and you don't just come out uh, of nowhere and just shave your head and everything's all good.
I think he just wanted to take the heat off of his like job talks. It's like people over here like, is he going to be the next? Is who's going next this season? Doug
Hmm.
Peterson or Nick Sirianni? And he's like, shave my head. He's like,
Yeah,
look, guys, I have a shaved head. Maybe
yeah.
they'll forget about this.
I'm not Nick Sirianni. That's
Yeah,
not me.
little
But
misdirection there.
yeah,
Smart.
he misdirection, but he can apologize all he wants. I don't like it, and I listened to actually Chris Long talked about it on his podcast, and he was like, name any other head coach in the league, and he's like, they're like Andy Reid, Sean Payton, this that. Can you imagine any other coach doing that? No,
Maybe Mike McDaniel, actually.
maybe, but he comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree, so I don't think that would happen. Like Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, even Mike McCarthy. No one else is doing that. What you know what
Mike
if
McCarthy.
Yeah, you know what,
That'd be
Nick
funny.
Sirianni, if you wanna be happy about beating the Browns by 4, by all means, go ahead. I'm pretty sure we blew them out week 1 on the road too. So, and we're apparently one of the Cowboys are one of the worst teams in the league. So,
Am I catching strays over here?
go on. Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about your team,
Another week. Another week. Deshaun Watson is still starting, and I feel like let me bring up Ari Mirov's tweets.
well,
What
first
are
of
your
all,
thoughts on
yeah. Well, what I do want to bring up is that I have been watching the Kevin Stefanski press conferences afterwards, and
Mhm.
you can just see the pain in his eyes when he says we're not making a change at quarterback.
Yeah.
And you got to feel bad for him because at this rate, it's not his decision to make anymore.
No.
And yeah, I think the tweet that you're going to bring up is how he continues to say that Deshaun gives them the best chance to win.
Yeah, well, it's just coach speak because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you can't like put him on the bench. He's worth so much money right now. I think it's like a 50 million guaranteed this year and next year.
The number that's been
All just
brought up
dead
is
cap.
yeah, the money the number that's been brought up is I believe 92
Yeah.
million if he was cut right now
Yeah,
in dead cap.
cap hit of 73 in both years. So he's almost 50 million guaranteed the next 2 years. So 45. All right. Oh no, yeah. So this year he's making 45. Next year he's making 45. The year after that he's making 45. All of that is fully guaranteed money. So as much as you want to bench him, I think that they can't do anything about it. Like you can put him on the bench and maybe win games, but you're going to be paying your bench player $150 million for the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So what they pretty much have to do is keep starting him until he plays well.
Or until it's I mean, do you think they're at this rate we've seen how bad Deshaun Watson's playing? Do you think there's any rate where he plays so bad that he does get benched?
Yeah, I think at this point, it's not like he's not playing well. He's also not throwing 4 or 5 picks a game. I think if
That's
that
true.
starts to happen, and he's actively losing games, then it's like he's got to see the bench.
I did have to look it up. So yeah, obviously Browns are 1-5. I don't know Deshaun's specific stats. I just know they're not great. Do you know that the Browns have not scored over 20 points yet this year?
Yep. I also know that there's a stretch where they did not complete a third down with him under center.
I think is that stretch still going on? I think that's still happening.
It might be. I didn't watch the game this week. I haven't turned on the game in the last 3 weeks.
I think it was
kind of
like
tough to even want to watch them at this point.
I think it was like one of 27 drives they had a touchdown. The other 26 were not. I think that was one of the numbers.
31st in the league in QBR.
Yeah. And
Nothing
you think
is top 22.
yeah. You think about how the Browns have one win, and it is actually crazy to think they have that one win, but they won 18-13. So even when they win, they can't score 20 points.
And it was against the Jags, who were like even more dysfunctional somehow. So
yeah. So I hate to keep hating on your Browns. I know
but,
you just
but also, I mean, he's saying that it's the best chance for them to win. They have been close in like 4 of their 6 games. So it's like maybe if you get a flash of old Deshaun and he throws like a 20-yard touchdown or scrambles for a first down, the game shifts and a field goal, a touchdown, something would have changed, and there you go. You pick up a win instead of a loss. But
no, I've meant to ask you this, but do you think he has the talent around him to be good? Or do you think it's just he's bad?
I think currently, he doesn't really have the talent to like be the best in the league. But I don't think if you're a good quarterback, that doesn't matter. I mean, we've seen look what Tom Brady's done. Look at what Patrick Mahomes has done recently.
Yeah,
Look
and
at
even then,
what Aaron Rodgers has like made his receivers, or even Jordan Love currently.
yeah, but I mean, I'll even give Deshaun a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. I know, yes, you have Amari Cooper, but he's aging. You have Jerry Jeudy, who's a good receiver, but it feels like wherever he's gone, has never really been able to get involved and was kind of cast off. You have David Njoku, who I still think for some reason the Browns this year are struggling to get involved. I think that might be a Deshaun Watson problem because Joe Flacco did so well of getting David Njoku involved last year. So
yeah, and I mean, there's no run game currently. Jerome Ford got hurt in that last game, so now you're down to your third string. I think if Nick Chubb comes back, then the offense starts to look better.
mm-hmm.
But the offensive line is still super banged up. They're on their third string center, right? There's not, I don't even think there's a starter healthy on the line right now.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't help you out.
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't even matter if the offensive weapons are there. The offensive line is not holding up well. But I mean, besides that, I feel like they should still be doing something and not looking like the worst ever.
Yeah, I want to look at their schedule real quick. They have the
Bengals,
Bengals.
Ravens.
Yep.
Next.
So
looking like 2 more losses here.
I mean, you talk about, the performance on the field from Deshaun, that he would have to play so bad that he would get benched, but you can't convince yourself if he's one. I mean, it's hard to imagine if they're 1-7, he's still the starter.
Yeah.
But it's
and
likely
maybe that's just saying just how bad Jameis Winston looks in practice.
It could be. Everyone's calling for Jameis Winston to be the starter, but maybe they are right. Maybe that's the sad part, is that Deshaun does give them the best chance to win, and they're just screwed.
Yeah. Although I think at this point, Browns fans we don't care for losing. We just don't want Deshaun Watson to be on the field.
That could be
I'd
true.
rather have an 0-16 season with Jameis Winston than a 5-win season with Deshaun.
Well, you won't go 0-16. You'll at least have that one win against the Jags.
Well, if maybe we'd started Jameis the whole year.
That's true. I mean, yeah, there's definitely, hopefully, some wins down the stretch here. However, I do think for the rest of the year, just based on the schedule right now, I think they only have one team on their schedule right now against a team that's under, or no, they have two. They have two against teams that are under 500, and that would be the Broncos and the Bengals twice. So, I don't know, buddy. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm seeing a 1-16 season coming.
That would be criminal, but that'd be kind of hilarious as well.
The second 16 loss season in the last decade. I think last one was like what, 2016 or 17. So,
well, if we want to move on, or if we want to stay on bad teams, let's talk about the Jags because the only team that
them under the bus. So.
The only team that the Browns were able to beat so far this year. They lose across the pond to
the Bears.
The Bears, and they made Caleb Williams look like the next best quarterback in the league, and maybe he will be. But this is by far the best game that Caleb Williams has had so far this year. And the Jags look terrible. Their defense looked terrible.
Yeah, I think Caleb Williams is here.
Yes, that might have been his coming out party, which was against.
Well, I think the last few weeks he's been.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
For sure. 4 touchdowns though. I mean,
last week 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. The week before he threw. The week before that, he threw 363 and 2.
And it's not even that the Jags, they lost and their defense didn't look great. They gave up 35 points. They only scored 16. Again, just the Trevor Lawrence talks are coming in. Now, I'm not going to say I have it as Jaguars defense as on my worst performances, but also a question mark next to Doug Peterson. I honestly expected to wake up Monday morning to but a tweet that Doug Peterson was fired.
Yeah, I think it's time for him to go because people are saying, "Oh, look at this draft class." It does look pretty bad. The top 4 picks of that draft class was Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and Kyle Pitts.
Mm-hmm.
But Trevor Lawrence has been great, right?
Yeah. So this week, he still completed 23 of his 35 passes, 234 yards. 2 touchdowns, and they really had to use him more because Travis Etienne their run game was terrible. So it pretty much all fell on Trevor's shoulders this game.
Yeah, I mean you have somehow they're averaging 3 yards a carry. Their running backs. I mean Travis Etienne carries 3 balls for -1 yards and then dies. I mean, the Jags, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is the problem. I think they don't have anything around him. This is the problem. I mean, you look at Evan Ingram he's back. That was a pretty good game by him.
Gabe Davis is okay.
Gabe Davis is your number 1 receiver. He's a number 3 on most teams. Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas has at least been playing well, but I mean, they just have nothing to help him out, and then the play calling is not there. It's it just doesn't really seem like Doug Peterson knows what's going on.
No, or if he even really knows how to fix it. It just, I don't know.
I think they just need new eyes.
Yeah, and they're 1-5 right now. I honestly think if they lose next week, which I want to see who they play next week.
They play across the pond again.
Yes, Patriots. Against the Patriots. Okay, if they lose, if they lose to the Patriots and they lose to 2 straight rookie quarterbacks, or they lose to 2 rookie quarterbacks back-to-back weeks, and they start 1-6, the Jags, you might as well. I mean, the season's basically over, so you might as well just get rid of your coach.
Yeah, I mean,
to make the playoffs in the AFC, they need to win at least 10 games. So the rest of the way, they would need to go 9-1. Yeah, that's not happening. At that rate, you might as well just get rid of Doug Peterson.
It feels like they're so bad that that the NFL doesn't even want them to come back to America. They're like, let the soccer fans over there watch them play because nobody else wants to. Like
they
relegated the Patriots and the Jags to London.
They were on their
game of the
way.
year.
They were on their way back, and the team got a call from Roger Goodell, and he's like, you know what? We're actually going to send the Patriots out there. You guys can stay out there, have a week. You know.
Yeah, a week in London. You deserve it.
Yeah, have a pint on me.
Yeah, why don't you just stay there the rest of the season? Actually, no more home games.
Yeah, you guys deserve a trip to the pub.
Yeah, I think everybody does after watching that.
Oh yeah, but
that kind of brings up like what I also saw this about the Browns. Bring it back to the Browns one last time. I saw Big Cat from Barstool. He said, like, what if this Deshaun Watson thing is like a public shaming thing that they're doing on him? They're like,
oh yeah,
they're like, well, he can't be convicted for anything that he's done. Apparently, he can just pay all these women off. Mm-hmm. So maybe the best way to punish him is to just have him play every week, because there's no way he's having fun out there. Yeah. He's having the worst day of his week every single Sunday.
Yeah,
maybe we're also publicly shaming the Jags by keeping them in London.
Yeah, the 30 for 30 on the Browns situation, honestly, is going to be crazy.
I can't wait.
I'm waiting for – I really want the Browns to play the Bucs next year.
Why?
So Baker can come back to Cleveland and win. I want there to be a regular season game next year in Cleveland against the Buccaneers, and Baker just pops off. Do you know the amount of money that game, the amount of eyes that would be on that game?
Yeah, that's
at least 2 right here.
I'd watch it.
So
I still love Baker. It'd be bittersweet to see him come home. That was his home. We saw those Allstate commercials or whatever it was, Progressive. So
at home with Baker Mayfield. But yeah, and you had Caleb on your best performances list, 226 yards, only threw 6 incompletions, threw 4 touchdowns. He almost had as many incompletions as touchdowns.
Yeah, which is crazy with 6
with a rookie quarterback too against. I think that might say more. I'm hoping it says more about Caleb Williams than it does the Jags defense, but it really, you mentioned it the last couple of weeks, it really does seem like Caleb Williams has kind of come into his own in the league.
Mm-hmm. He's getting more creative. They're letting him throw the ball more. It also feels like the run game is kind of coming alive here.
Mm-hmm.
We saw DeAndre Swift actually have another good game.
Mm-hmm.
So this Bears offense looks really good right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the one piece that wasn't there was the run game. They were kind of keeping Caleb Williams down a bit, waiting for him to kind of get going, and now you're probably having Keenan Allen come back here.
Mm-hmm. 2 touchdowns for Keenan Allen, I want to say. I think he caught 2.
Oh, yeah.
Cole Kmet. Yeah, he was big for me in fantasy. He was big.
Really?
Yeah, that was awesome. And he actually, funny thing about Cole Kmet too, he actually had to play 2 positions on Saturday or on Sunday. He was the long snapper for the Bears too. Their long snapper got hurt. Their long snapper got hurt, and he had to come in and be the long snapper. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, my fantasy players were not great that game. I woke up in the morning in tears when I saw Travis Etienne's stat line.
Yeah, I was telling a friend, I was like, well, since Cole Kmet's the long snapper now, can I actually get extra fantasy points for that?
Yeah, my man's got to play 1 point per snap, PPS.
My man's got to play 2 positions now. But good on you, Cole Kmet. Where do you want to go next?
I mean, this is setting up the NFC North to be like the division, which we were everybody was almost right, right?
Right.
We also the AFC North. We just got one letter wrong. So, I mean, the Bears are the bottom team right now in that division at 4-2. They look incredible. I also had Jordan Love on one of my players of the week because he also threw 4 touchdowns. Or are they just giving out 4 touchdown games to NFC North quarterbacks? Like,
Apparently, yeah, and that was against the Cardinals, who honestly, like, their record, they're 2-4 now. Coming into the game, they were 2-3, but I didn't think they were honestly that bad of a team.
no, they looked pretty good. I think they were kind of coming alive. I think they genuinely, if Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't do well, they are going to lose the game. He got injured.
Could be.
They lost the game. He wasn't great. He was not involved in week 1. They lost the game. It's like that just shows you what a generational talent he is. It's apparently he's the key deciding factor.
And the Cardinals, or the Packers defense also probably had their best game of the season, even with Jordan Love popping off, putting up 34 points, 4 touchdowns. They held Kyler and the run game under control, only 13 points allowed. And their leading rusher was, I want to say this is Trey Benson. Trey Benson. There we go. 20 odd yards. Kyler completed a decent amount of his passes, 22 for 32, 214 yards and a touchdown. But they kind of held him under control. It helps that when Marvin Harrison isn't playing, but that was probably the best defensive game that the Packers have played this season.
Yeah, I mean, just containing Kyler Murray is like always the game plan for teams. And they keep him to 2 yards a carry. I mean, that's all you can really ask for. I mean, that Cardinals offense seems like, I mean, Kyler is good at throwing the ball. I want to say he's great. He's had moments here and there, especially if Marvin Harrison is in. But besides that, he really thrives if he can move the ball on the ground.
Yeah. And with the Cardinals right now sitting at 2-4, like I mentioned, they're kind of one of those teams where I would almost kind of compare their season right now to the Dolphins, other teams that are like under 500, but obviously it's so early in the year. They're kind of on shit or get off the pot mode because you're almost a couple weeks away from like this season and pretty much being whatever now.
However, they are in the NFC West, which is
supposed to be the most competitive division, but is not looking great.
Might be one of the worst divisions currently. Because, I mean, right now, the 49ers took the sole lead of 1 after beating the Seahawks. So they're both tied with the 49ers getting the tiebreaker. They're only 1 game up of the Cardinals. So the Cardinals are still in it.
Kind of an interesting schedule too for for the Niners, who have now played everyone in their division through 6 weeks. A lot of teams haven't. I mean, I've only had like 1 or 2 divisional games. Like the Cowboys, we've only played the Giants so far. So they kind of got a taste, and now the 49ers kind of have to go on a rough stretch because I know they have to play the Chiefs. They also have to play the Bucks. So they're kind of going against non-divisional opponents for the rest of for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, with how the division's playing, they're actually kind of glad they played their divisional opponents.
Yeah.
Although I'm pretty sure they were the 49ers in division because they dropped the game to the Cardinals, dropped a game to the Rams. So, although they would have liked to see those divisional opponents going into the season, it seems like they're kind of not faring well in the division.
Right.
But it doesn't really matter if you beat the number 2 team because you get the sole tiebreaker over that team.
Right. And yeah, like I was saying, Cardinals, I think they're honestly like a pretty fine team. They're going to squeak out some wins here. This is one of those years where I would say last year was honestly kind of a wash because you don't really find out. You didn't really find out anyone who was really that much better because Kyler couldn't play for the first half of the year. Now it's like, you're getting your rookie receiver involved. You have James Conner as the running back, who he's doing fine. The defense is okay. Kyler's still doing well. You know what you're kind of getting from him. I think we kind of starting to figure out what Kyler's going to be. Honestly, right now, I would say the Cardinals for me are going to be, they're one of those teams where maybe not this year, but maybe next year they can contend for the playoffs. I think, they could still contend for the playoffs this year, but no real threat, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, they would need they kind of need to like fix a lot of areas, I would say.
Right. Like I was saying, like they'll win some games here for sure, but like I'm never watching a Cardinals game like, oh, like they're for sure going to be really good at this area. Like, yes, Kyler is great, but like I don't really think this offense is like at the best it can possibly be right now. Even with guys like Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, like I said, James Conner's a fine running back. He's doing pretty well back there the last couple of years, but I still think there's another level that this offense can go to.
Yeah, I'm just not sold on Kyler Murray being like the guy that can bring them a Super Bowl if they need it. He might be able to get them to the playoffs here and there, but
yeah,
it's almost like a similar situation to like Baker on the Browns of like, yeah, I think Baker was the guy for the Browns, but I don't know if he was going to win them a Super Bowl.
I mean,
because there's so much wrong with the organization. And
yeah, it is kind of similar because you think of all these years that Kyler's been on the Cardinals, he's brought them to the playoffs one time. Mm-hmm. Same with Baker when he was there for 5 years, he brought them to the playoffs one time. So
yeah, because it's just like a little bit of inconsistencies of like, they're injured some years, other years like, Kyler will be in the MVP talks through like 8 weeks and then fall off, or he won't play well early on and then he'll have a resurgence in the middle of the season. It's like a lot of these elite quarterbacks string together a fully good year and then they have the confidence, they have the momentum to actually end the season with those like last 4 games being strong.
Yeah. Geez, we're kind of hating on the Cardinals right now, but
I know I didn't have this on my bingo card this morning.
I will say I think Kyler is still fun to watch. I think maybe I'm kind of hopping on your bus where is he really the guy? But
yeah, I think it's tough to be that guy where like it's very rare to have a quarterback that can win you a Super Bowl. Like you can have elite quarterbacks. I mean, you look at Dallas. Dak is a great quarterback, but I don't know if he has the same amount of talent as somebody like Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, or even currently like Brock Purdy, to where like he can lead a team to a Super Bowl if he needs to.
I could agree with you on that because even like I've been thinking about this. Like want to relate to. I mean, yeah, Dak Prescott. Maybe
who he reminds me of? It's kind of like Brett Favre or Peyton Manning early on.
I was going to say Phillip Rivers for his whole career. He's a good He's a great quarterback all time for sure. But was he ever really the reason to lead them to the playoffs and like win them a Super Bowl? No, he never won a Super Bowl and struggled to get into the playoffs a lot of those years.
Well, it's like the same with like Brett Favre was really good on a lot of those like early 2000s Packers teams, and none of them sniffed the Super Bowl. I mean, he went to he won one in 97, but I mean, you look at Peyton Manning too, like especially when he was a Bronco, if his defense wasn't healthy at the end of that year, he wasn't going to be the reason they won that Super Bowl.
But I heard someone talking about how like who was it? I think on Rich Eisen, someone was saying that last night's Jets game was like the biggest game of Aaron Rodgers' career. Which
yeah, pretty sure I remember him beating the Steelers at one point.
Yeah, but I think they were saying in terms of like because he wants to be the next quarterback. like a Brady, like a Manning, who goes to another team and wins a Super Bowl, which I can see what they're talking about, and how like he pretty much got Robert Saleh fired, even though that's not really the narrative that I'm getting. But
in Brady's case, he went to a super team.
yeah, and
There's not,
both Brady and Manning went to teams that had
yeah,
great defenses,
yeah,
and the Jets have that too.
They have a great defense. I wouldn't say they have like a Super Bowl tier defense though,
Okay, yeah, I'll agree with you there.
because they would have probably made the playoffs with almost anybody under center. You look at the Browns last year.
Okay, I'll give you that. But if we want to move on here, maybe we'll hit two more best performances. I know you got one that'll pertain to our last segment, but we got a best performance from you and worst. We can hit on those real quick and then move on into our last segment, which is kind of what I have in the title, just problems with the Cowboys and the Browns. But we'll get to that. We can hit on our last two best and worst performances.
Yeah, I like the Texans Patriots game mainly because I've been high on Drake May for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
This whole year I've been like, oh, when is I actually drafted Drake May in fantasy. Well, I dropped him here and there just to make some space on my bench, but
yeah,
picked him up again because I saw the talent that he had in the preseason. And I was like, there's no reason that Jacoby Brissett should be starting. Patriots dropped 4 games in a row. They're like, all right, let's toss Drake May under center. And I mean, sure, he lost. He had 2 picks, especially I think one. He lost the game through 2 interceptions.
You're talking them all up. You're like, well, he lost, but no, he did look good.
Yeah, he looked really good. 243. He threw 3 touchdowns, which it took all of the other rookies like 3 combined weeks to put up one.
Yeah. I think it was more just surprising because I didn't know how he was going to look, but he did actually look pretty decent. I did not expect 3 touchdowns, especially with not even just being a rookie, but on the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, he threw one to Kayshon
Booty.
Yeah. There's no way.
I'm pretty sure it is because on Part of My Take, they were doing their weekly recap. It was, if you don't watch Part of My Take, which I don't know if you watch their like weekly recaps, but they always like make reference. They do their fastest 2 minutes. Like, who's that one guy that used to do it? He's on Monday Night Football. But anyway, and they always like, make jokes and everything. One of their guys was like throwing a touchdown to Trey. Booty, 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 rocking everywhere. So.
Okay. Jeez.
Trey. Booty, booty, booty. But yeah, Drake May.
Yeah, Drake May also is the leading rusher because Antonio Gibson averaged 1.5 yards per carry. What are we doing here?
I mean, honestly, you could just say Drake May, a rookie quarterback, was the leading rusher because the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, he was the Patriots offense.
And Ramondre Stevenson was out.
Oh, yeah.
So that doesn't help. But
yeah, but I mean, besides that, obviously the Texans are a really good team. Mm-hmm. Even without Nico Collins, Tank Dell he actually stepped up. Stephon Diggs got involved. They're a 5-1 team for a reason. I think this was not a game that you were expecting to win, but he looked really good in the loss.
Yeah, like even with the 2 interceptions, like for a rookie quarterback to come out, complete 20 of his 33 attempts, 243 yards, and throw 3 touchdowns against the Texans defense, which you got a guy on here on one of your best performances. But I mean, I'm very surprised by Drake May. Don't be surprised if, he kind of he's behind, obviously, but gets himself into that conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, he's pretty far behind at this point.
Yeah.
But, it is early in the season still. I think, I had Will Anderson on my best performances just because
Mm-hmm.
3 sacks against a rookie quarterback. He pretty much christened him. And I think
Mm-hmm.
you always love to see that. You know,
Welcome to the
I
league.
like to see rookies. I like to see rookies succeed, especially because
Mm-hmm.
this draft class is making you eat your words quite a bit.
And why is that?
Oh, I'm pretty sure you said something about this. Every single player was going to be a bust, or there's an
I think
good, and
you're
now the
probably
rookies are all playing well.
you're thinking back to that's probably stuff that I was saying in the Iowa State Daily office. I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you said it like at least 12 times in the office.
Um,
No,
but look at the
yeah,
Patriots. I mean, I'm just looking at their schedule. Like they got Jags, Jets, Titans, Bears. Don't be surprised if in these next 3 weeks they squeak out 2 wins
don't
against
be
the
surprised if
Jags
they
and the
go
Titans.
4-0 in the next 4 weeks.
And that'll be a good game after that, after they play the Titans, they play the Bears.
I'll do you one better. Don't be surprised if they lose
Oh,
only 1 game the rest of the season.
okay. Calm down. Calm down.
They do have a pretty bad schedule going forward. I mean,
Lose 1 game.
they play the Bills twice. But besides that, I mean, they have the Jags, the Jets, the Titans, the Bears. I mean, the Bears look good, but maybe the Bears will be the Bears. The Rams, a 1-win team.
Can
The
you
Dolphins.
They're 1-5 right now. Can you imagine if the rest of the way Drake May goes 11-1 the rest, 12-1 the rest of the way?
I think it's 10-1.
10-1. 10-1.
Yeah. And they make the playoffs at 11 wins.
He might just be the greatest quarterback ever. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, he could easily be the best Patriots quarterback.
Yeah, there's no one else. But yeah, he looked great. Will Anderson, 3 sacks. Still somehow not in the top 5. I mean, of total sack leaders. But you know who is? Oh, he's tied with Max Crosby for 5th with 5.5 right now.
Yeah, he got most of them in that game.
Yeah. Will McDonald tied for 2nd with 7. Sorry, I always do that.
Tough.
Our boy. Anyways.
Did he get one this last week? Did he pick up another one in this last game?
He got one this. I saw someone tweet about it. So yeah, he got one.
Yep.
Just to hit quick on my last worst performance. Want to hit a guy that isn't a rookie this year like Drake May, but he's still playing like one. And it's sad for me to say this because in the offseason, I watched a podcast with Will Levis on it, and he just looked like a super chill dude and like kind of misunderstood. Like people are always kind of dogging on him and stuff. But man, I don't know how much longer he's going to be the starter there if they just keep losing these games. He goes this week in a very winnable game against the Colts, 16 for 27 for 95 yards. 95 yards on 16 completions. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. I'm sorry, Will. You got it. I mean, and you've got guys. You got DeAndre Hopkins. You've got Calvin Ridley. You've got a pretty decent run game. I mean, Tony Pollard had to will his way to that being a very close game. And they had multiple chances late in that game to take the lead and just can't get it. I think the base, like borderline for Will Levis is just he has not been able to get the job done.
No, he's looked incredibly bad. I mean, to be honest, this is probably one of his. This might have been his worst passing game of the year.
I mean, it can't
Although
get much worse.
Throw a pick 6.
He
didn't throw a pick 6, did he?
No, he did not.
So that means it's better than the other 2 games in which he did that.
But I mean, yeah, it can't get much worse than 95 yards on 16 completions.
Yeah. I mean, I think they'll keep starting him just because it's funny. He's like actually clip farming in the NFL, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. This week he had the Spider-Man, whatever you want to call it, and then running into the ball boy who got stretched off the field. So it's kind of bad. I did see someone make a TikTok on that. It was like, why are we letting 80-year-old men be ball boys in the NFL?
Hey, he's a professional ball boy. Wait, come on now.
Okay, but if you have a guy running at you, you're like,
do you want him to crush an actual ball boy, like a 8-year-old kid? I think
no, I'm saying
give it. Dirt.
No. I'm saying give it to like someone that is not on welfare. I don't know.
Well, I think it was probably like a volunteer. Somebody who just retired. He lives in the area. He's like, why not?
Yeah. Well, maybe they should make sure that he's able to juke away from a Will Levis of all people running into his legs and folding him like a table.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just overlooking how good of a tackle that Levis made there.
Well, I mean, he got kind of like pushed and then ran into his legs, and he got pretty folded there. It was pretty bad. But yeah, Will Levis, I mean, he seems like a nice guy. I think he can be a good quarterback, but like it's just, and I think I made this point before. Is technically he is still in his rookie year. I mean, he started towards the end of last year. He's still these are still kind of his first couple starts in the NFL, first handful of starts. So there's a learning curve to it, but also I don't know if you saw, but Calvin Ridley got pretty pissed at reporters after the game. He was pretty blank with it. No, yeah, he had a quote where it was pretty much just like to get the offense going, get me the ball early on. Like he's like, and he cursed a couple times, and he's like, basically just like he wants to get involved early if they want to get the offense going, and he was pretty frustrated afterwards. Which how can you not be? I mean, your quarterback only throws for 95 yards, and you guys lose by 3.
Yeah, I'm to Joe Flacco of all people.
Threw 2 touchdowns, which one of them went to Michael Pittman, who pretty much I'm surprised when I saw that. I was very surprised because I thought he was not playing this week. I kept seeing that he had like a back injury, but then I got a notification that afterwards I was like, he had like an hour-long call with his dad, which like motivated him to play. And I was like, dang, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, hour-long call, and then he took some painkillers.
Yeah, that's right. He was like, well, they were injecting me with, horse tranquilizers. So while they were doing that, I called my dad.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, I'll play.
Yeah, but anyways, I mean, Colts up to 3-3. Titans, I think the Titans are fine starting Will Levis because they want the number 1 pick next year.
Which would go to Travis Hunter? I keep sending our friend Tyler Coe, whenever PFF comes out with their mock drafts, people keep mocking Ashton Jeanty to the Cowboys. So every week I just send it to Tyler.
Yeah, who had another 200-yard week this week. I mean, just without trying.
Well, I guess I mentioned in the backfield. I guess I mentioned them already. Yeah. Well, people haven't mentioned this yet, probably because he hasn't played this year yet. But Nick Chubb also does that. He just stands there.
I've seen people saying that it's like not really the same. Ashton Jeanty, like he looks like Mike Myers. He's literally standing there, like arms to his side, just like straight up and down. At least Nick Chubb, he'll like have his hands on like his thighs standing up, or sometimes it's like on his knees. Jeanty looks like he's not even in the play. It looks like he's not rendered yet, and then he just takes the ball and runs up the yard like for a touchdown. Stupid.
Well, I guess I should probably address the elephant. We got to your team. I guess I should probably address the elephant in the room, right?
Right.
Sorry, I was clicking onto other tabs, so I couldn't see what if you were nodding your head or not.
Oh. Yes, for all the For our blind listeners, I was nodding my head.
There you go. All right. Lions beat the Cowboys 47-9 on Jerry Jones' birthday in Dallas.
Although before you get to that,
okay,
before you get on a huge roll here,
okay.
The one thing I want to mention about that game, Aiden Hutchinson had a terrible injury. So
yeah.
I mean, that's something that's. I mean, we were talking about Will Anderson being like doing well. Will McDonald up to 7 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Aiden Hutchinson was like a shoe-in for Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Yeah, still leads the league right now with 7.5 sacks.
Yeah, and I think after that, it's. I'd be surprised if he comes back like at the start of next year.
I think they said, what was it, 6 to 8 months from right now?
Yeah. So, he had to have emergency surgery in Dallas.
Yeah, I honestly, when they first showed it, well, they only showed it once on the broadcast, and I couldn't really see it that well. And even some of the videos on Twitter were just showing the broadcast, and they weren't going in slow-mo. So when I watched it, at first I was like, oh, like I don't really, like, does he get stepped on? Like, I just really couldn't tell. But then when I saw it in slow-mo, I was like, okay, yeah, that is bad. That was bad.
Like, it was like wrapped around.
Yeah. Just
I saw when they did it on the broadcast, he held his leg up and it just kind of like flopped. Like, yeah, that's broken in multiple places.
Yeah, and it sucks even more because you see him, like, there was an angle where it was on his face and he just goes, it's broken.
Yeah.
And you know, I was actually getting reminded about that because one of my cousin's boyfriends, who pretty close with him, he is a Lions fan, and I texted him before the game because I completely forgot. I was like, oh yeah, I should probably text him, just give him, a good luck. And I basically sent him like, this is it's a regular season game. I'm gonna say, good luck to you, all good fun. I'm a nice Cowboys fan when it comes to playing other teams, unless it's the Eagles. But I said, wish you the best of luck. Let's have a good game. Let's have good health. We got bigger fit. Both of our teams got bigger fish to fry down the end of the road. He said, I couldn't agree more. And we didn't text each other after the game, and he just texted me, welp, we didn't get a good game or good health. So I'll have to text him back and be like, yeah, sorry about Hutch. But anyways.
Yeah.
Resume.
Unpause.
That was probably the most embarrassing game I've ever watched as a Cowboys fan. And I went so far as to, I told Christian, I said, I'm going to make a list of why the Cowboys are dysfunctional. And I just titled it, Cowboys, a Dysfunctional Franchise. I'll just hit on the game real quick. Dak did not look great. It's really hard to continue to come to bat for Dak Prescott when he plays like that. You could argue it's not really his fault too much because he's just trying to make plays out there. That first interception to CD, that was terrible. The other one, just late in the game, it didn't look like at any point the Cowboys really had a chance after that first quarter. So I have this list here, and Christian, I want you to stop me when I say something that you would not agree with.
All right, I'm looking at it.
All right, so I have it labeled. As what's up?
You can see that when I click over to the list, it just pops up on my face.
So I have 2 different sections here. I have personnel and then front office and coaches. I'll hit the personnel, and these are issues that we've had throughout this whole year, pretty much. But they were just so very apparent in this Lions game. Like, we had these issues against the Steelers, but somehow we still win. All right. No run game. No receivers outside of CD. There's no heart on defense. We can't create pressure. The secondary is god-awful. There's no willingness to fight once we get down, even just by a field goal or a touchdown. And we can't win at home. A place where we went undefeated last year. And, I understand Micah's out. DeMarcus Lawrence is out. We've got a couple other guys on defense. The secondary is still banged up without Deron Bland. Eric Kendricks was out this game, which who knew how big of a loss he would be. But once Jahmyr Gibbs, Devontae, or David Montgomery, anyone would get past our defensive linemen, our secondary and our linebackers could not tackle.
Yeah.
You may interject.
Well, I love that you bring up the defense because I did remember it had another best performance.
Yes.
Lions play calling.
Oh, they were doing whatever they wanted with us because they knew they could.
They were disrespecting.
Yes.
They knew that the defense was like not good this year. So we saw a lot of plays that were like forced to offensive tackles. They should have had 2 more touchdowns to offensive tackles.
Yeah.
You know, they have a double flea flicker to Sam Laporta.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, geez, they were just playing backyard ball, and they didn't let off the gas once.
And that's the problem. It's not even. I mean, yeah. Once our team gets down, that's when defensively we just need to put in the subs, wave the white flag because our first string guys were playing like the game was over, and it pretty much was because again that's just addressing when we get down by 2 scores, even when we're down like 17 points, which by no means is like you cannot come back from that. Even early in the game, like we were, there's no willingness to fight to get back into games. They're just like, oh, well, we're just going to win. We're going to lose this. Our offense can't really score points, so we're just going to let up touchdowns every single drive.
Yeah.
I can move to front office. Front office and coaches is my next section. This is where I get a little bit more heated. Jerry Jones. I'm honestly so happy that they lost on your birthday. We need a real general manager because he is unwilling to address glaring issues. We knew coming into the offseason that we were not going to be able to run the ball. We had Rico Dowdle and we brought back Ezekiel Elliott. That was our plan in the run game. And, he addresses, we just couldn't really afford Derrick Henry. They're paying Derrick Henry $8 million. We can't afford that. Or not even Derrick Henry. We need to bring someone in. We're trusting Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott to carry the load. They have not been able to do that at all this year. I think Rico Dowdle's had 1 good game, and that was last week against the Steelers. Mike McCarthy never has his guys in a position to win. It seems like there's no game plan coming in. It seems like we don't adjust to other teams. We just do our game plan, Mike McCarthy's game plan. And if it doesn't work, well, then there's no adjustments. And that moves on to Mike Zimmer, the defensive coordinator, who this whole season has not proven to adjust mid-game when the defense is playing terrible. And that just allows teams to do whatever they want. We saw it in the Ravens game. We saw it in the Lions game. Who else did we lose to? It was the same thing. Who cares? We're going to see it the rest of the year because Mike Zimmer just fails to adjust. And after this game, my last point I'd like to make is I'm going to stay positive about the Cowboys. I'm still going to watch every game. But with how this has been like the same shit every year, I'm going to call it. We're going to miss the playoffs. And there better be some change in the offseason. I'm talking either head coach or general manager or both. Because I know we're sitting at 3-3 right now. Jerry Jones said after the game, he's like, you know what? That's the best thing. We lose this game, but we're still 3-3. No. Okay. That means we're 6 weeks into it and we still look terrible. Somehow we're 3-3. I am done, and I would expect us to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, well, you would miss the playoffs on pace for 9-8 or 8-9. So That's not a playoff team.
And it shouldn't be. I don't want to see them go in the playoffs again because when they do, it's just going to be the same thing. And something that we talked about actually was the amount of points that we've let up at home. And I want to say
it's like 160 something.
And we've gotten at home in the playoff game against Green Bay. We got behind early. We looked terrible. Same thing with the Ravens and the Lions. Honestly, you could look at the defense and the offense in all 3 of those games. It's the same thing. Defense looks terrible. They let up big plays. They don't know how to tackle. They have no heart to get back into this game. The offense can't score points. They don't adjust. Both sides of the ball don't adjust. We get behind early, and there's no hope in the second half because we let up like 20 points in the first quarter, and we rely on Brandon Aubrey to give us 6 points.
It was the same thing with the Saints as well.
Yeah, yes, the Saints. That's what it was. No defensive adjustments. Offense couldn't get going. We're down big at halftime. There's no chance in us getting back in this game. Yeah, like I said, I'm a fan, but I want change. That's true fandom when you're going to stick with your team. I'm going to still watch every game this year. Of course, I'm going to cheer them on, but I'm not going to set myself up to be disappointed when they miss the playoffs. So I'm just calling it right now.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, Mike McCarthy is a pretty bad head coach.
Yes.
Anybody who's been following the Packers for a while has known that there's a reason he got fired from the Packers. And I think when he moved to the Cowboys, I think they had like a easy playoff team for a while, right? Like they've been
12-5 these last 3 years.
Yeah, like they're just clearly like the best team in that division. If the Eagles aren't doing well, I mean, Mike McCarthy doesn't really know how to coach the current version of NFL, right?
He doesn't know how to coach up a player, or not even just a player, the team.
Yeah, like there's a clear difference in what like Dan Campbell is doing, how he's getting his team to buy in, how he's getting. I mean, it doesn't matter who's playing on his team; they buy into him as a person, and it's clear that Mike McCarthy is just not respected or something there. Because, I mean, he didn't know how to play call. He was getting like washed up. He was becoming washed when he was still a Packers head coach. And he's somehow still coaching in the league. It's pretty similar to like Bill Belichick of like what you used back in the early 2000s or the mid 2010s. That's not going to work now. Like we're at a completely different time in the NFL.
So. Yeah, that's just what is sad about it, is that in terms of like X's and O's, like I would probably assume that Mike McCarthy is a better head coach than Dan Campbell. Mike McCarthy's been doing this for way longer, way more experience as a head coach. When it comes to strictly X's and O's, he's probably a better coach than Dan Campbell. But when it comes to coaching up a team and making guys buy into your culture, like and it's crazy that this just a loss to drop us to 3-3 is what is opening my mind to this. But it's the fact of how we lost and how we've been losing this year that pretty much like we don't have a culture for the Cowboys, and it makes me want Mike McCarthy to be out because I want a Dan Campbell and Andy Reid. And Andy Reid, he's one of the best coaches in NFL history, going to go down as one. But someone that they're going to buy into the culture. Even a Mike Tomlin, you buy into the culture. There's no culture in Dallas.
Even like Kevin Stefanski, who I really hope they don't. I don't think they'll ever let him go at the Browns.
I mean, 2-time head coach of the year. They shouldn't.
Yeah, because clearly I think this year, I think everybody's aware of the fact that like it's not really his decision to bench Deshaun. What he's done with the team, especially defensively in his tenure, is just makes him a good head coach. Just seems like Mike McCarthy just is like a robot. Just like there hasn't really been a culture there for a while. And I think, some of these best teams in the league are ones that they have certain systems. There's no like Mike McCarthy system. There's a Kyle Shanahan system. There's no Mike McCarthy culture. There's Dan Campbell culture. Like good coaches help their team just be better. He just is he clocks in and then clocks out. That's what he does.
And it's crazy because some of the best teams that he's had are because like the way that the Cowboys have been able to succeed is because of the coordinators he's had around him. Now, honestly, it's starting to look like last year is a bit of an outlier because, yeah, Dak Prescott looked the best that he ever did when Mike McCarthy was calling the plays last year. And, I think Dak has looked better with Kellen Moore, the years before that. This is probably, the worst start that Dak's been off to in a while. And defensively, our defense imploded a couple times last year. You think about the Niners game in the regular season last year and in the Packers game. But other than that, they were pretty solid. We have Mike Zimmer, like I said, there's no culture. Dan Quinn at least had a culture last year of coaching up his guys and always putting them in the best position to win. And at least getting, starting things off right and finishing games like that. Mike Zimmer doesn't have that. I don't think it's simply like, we need a new offensive coordinator. I just think Mike McCarthy needs to go. And to hit on Jerry Jones one more time, I was thinking about it this morning. We need a real GM who is going to make moves in the offseason and midseason, whether that's trade or free agency. And I'm not talking re-sign old Ezekiel Elliott because we're all buddy-buddy and we want the Ezekiel Elliott reunion. I'm talking you make splashes in free agency and you make trades.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like it almost seems like he's senile.
Yeah, well, it's like he's got to be the oldest GM in the league, right? He has to be.
Yeah, and it's clear that he doesn't know what's going on.
No.
I mean, we saw people keep asking him, like, how are you going to fix this team? How are you going to fix this team? He's like, what? Stop asking me that.
Yeah, pretty much.
I know. I have people that know more than you do. It's like, clearly you don't. Clearly that's not the case. I mean, if you did, why are the issues still this glaring and getting worse and worse and worse?
And it's been like this for years now, where they don't make trades, like aggressive trades to get, to upgrade the roster. They don't make big signings in free agency to upgrade the roster. They stick with who they have. They draft some pretty decent pieces every year and keep those guys around. They act surprised when nothing changes. I remember one of the questions after the game this week was pretty much just like, a reporter, and this is a very valid question. He's like, how are you gonna take ownership for a loss like this? And he's like, well, I don't have to take ownership. I am the owner. And it's like, okay, well, you're taking that question literally. I mean, like, how are you okay, yeah, you're the owner, you're the GM. That means that every loss solely falls on you because you are, there's coaches and everything, but in terms of just how the roster has played, that's because of you, because you control who is on this team.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're in a day and age where you have to be aggressive. All right, we see how Dan Campbell's succeeding. We see the Ravens being aggressive in free agency. We see, the Chiefs being aggressive at having the best quarterback. The Cowboys just play it safe. They're just like, well, maybe if we just play better this year somehow. No.
And you bring up the Chiefs, they just make right moves in free agency. They draft a first round receiver because they need a first round receiver, and with the Cowboys, just looking back, drafting Mozzie Smith, he's been playing terrible. He got him drafted 2 years ago, I want to say. He was last year's first round pick. This year they draft an offensive lineman. He's been playing fine, but it's like, we don't draft a running back this year when we obviously need one. We don't go out and sign one. And you just really downgrade at defensive coordinator. It's hard to get better than Dan Quinn, who's been doing an amazing job head coaching the Commanders. But we just need a better, it's just settling for, who will come to Dallas. And it has just not looked great this year. And that Lions loss really just put everything into perspective for me.
Yeah.
So that's all I have. If you want to hit on your Browns at all. I know you talk about Deshaun Watson, but I mean, we've also talked off camera about the things that have made the Browns what they are.
Well, I feel like at this point, it's just got to be injuries. I mean, I feel like they have been a quarterback away from like being a competitive team for a while. They had their quarterback in Baker and just terrible moves. They let him play injured a whole season. We're like, oh, he's underperforming, clearly, because he can't feel his arms when he's throwing the ball. And then they let him go for some reason. And then they went on to have the worst contract in sports history by far. Like, I've heard people saying this is like the worst contract ever. Like, in
Even
any
just
sport.
Even just take out the draft capital that they gave up to trade for him. The contract is way worse.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the cherry on top, is that they killed the future of the team. They killed any chance of picking up people in free agency because they're giving Deshaun Watson so much money. And they have no out. That's the big thing. They were like, let's just go all in and hope that he works. If he doesn't work, all in. If he doesn't work, we're going to be screwed for years. He didn't work. And now we're seeing that. I mean, the team was way better to watch when we had Joe Flacco playing. Even when we had DTR playing, I was like so happy. And I think Browns fans want to see Jameis Winston in, but Kevin Stefanski has to keep saying, Deshaun's my guy, because technically I can't bench him because we're paying him too much money.
Yeah. It's become pretty apparent that, like I said, it is not a Stefanski decision to keep him playing. There's no way he truly believes that Deshaun gives them the best chance to win when they're 1-5. And he's been anywhere from below average to terrible.
No, he's been the worst quarterback in the league. He makes Will Levis look like a Hall of Famer. It's bad. And then along with that, I mean, he has so many off-field issues. He moved to Cleveland, and now he's still sexually assaulting people.
At this rate, you got to think that maybe when the Deshaun tenure's over, the GM, I believe it's Andrew Berry, he's got to be out.
Which you don't want to see, because, I mean, he has been a great GM. Like,
in terms of drafting, I would say yes.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where they've been strong for years. But, I mean, this is also the same reason they got rid of
John Dorsey.
John Dorsey, who I liked him because of how well he drafted. But there's just so much more to like building a good team than just drafting.
Yeah. Like, even when you think about like the John Dorsey era, like he brought in Odell, which is like, that's an aggressive trade, who like ended up like working out sometimes, but like give up some capital for that. But he did draft well, because you got to think he was part of, I want to say he was part of like the Baker, the Denzel,
the Myles
Garrett draft. He brought in also like not Julius Peppers. Is that who I'm thinking of? Who did he draft? Myles Garrett, David Njoku, he was part of that too. Nick Chubb, finding him in the second round, and Andrew Berry's kind of taken on the same thing, like I said, with drafting. But in terms of that Deshaun, like, that has to get, I'll just say that has to get him fired for making that decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. I think. I mean, honestly, the Odell trade wasn't even that crazy, because you give up, I think, was it only one first round?
I think it was, one.
You didn't play like a first round pick. So, I mean, that Odell trade is pretty much what got John Dorsey fired. I think this was probably what's going to get Andrew Berry fired. But you hate to see it, because, I mean, they do so well in the drafts. And I think it's tough to get players to come play for the Browns.
At this rate, yeah. I mean, it's been like that, but...
It's been like that, which is why they had to fully guarantee all the money to Deshaun.
Mm-hmm.
But then now it's biting them because, I mean, Deshaun's over here saying, he's like holding out from the Texans, like, oh, I'm the best
Mm-hmm.
player in the league. And then he has to hold out again or be suspended a year. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
by the time he's now on the field, it's like, I thought you were the person saying you were like the best in the league. You deserve to
Right.
get paid.
Right.
You got paid. Why aren't you performing?
All questions we hope to get asked, and we'll just see how long it goes on for Deshaun and how long this continues to happen for both of our franchises.
Yeah. I've seen people say, oh, this couldn't have happened to a better franchise. People like hating on the Browns. I'm like,
Yeah.
a lot of like actual Browns fans are not. There's like some people that are like Deshaun Watson like fans. They're like happy that we got a criminal,
Mm-hmm.
and real fans are like, bro, this is like the worst contract ever, and
Right.
Again tarnishing our franchise. I think people, obviously they don't like when Myles Garrett was swinging helmets either. It's like,
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, they need to keep him out of trade talks. I know he was in there for like a little bit, like kind of getting considered. I mean, if they trade Myles Garrett, the Cleveland fans are going to be irate.
yeah, no, I would drive to Cleveland to burn it down. But I mean, also people are happy because, I mean, Cowboys fans have bad reputation, so they're happy that they're finally eating it.
Yeah, well,
the only two good fans in both our fan bases.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, our seasons are both over, right? Like for both of us.
Okay, your team's 3-3.
But again, I just said the problems are not going to get addressed. This same stuff's going to happen.
Yeah, but you also get to play.
The
Browns haven't been competitive at all.
We have to play the Niners again, I think. Or no, I'm pretty sure we have to play the Chiefs. I knew our schedule.
Jeez. Play the Niners. You also have the privilege of playing the Falcons, the Panthers, the Eagles twice, and Texans, the Giants again.
And the Commanders twice.
Hell, even the Bengals could be an easy game.
Bucks. So
I mean, there's like winnable games. Whereas like it doesn't really matter who the Browns play. I don't think there's another winnable game. Maybe if Tua gets concussed again and they play the Dolphins at the end of the year. Besides that, I mean, it's looking real bad.
Yeah, that's kind of a depressing note for us to both end on, but I feel like we had to get on grievance.
Yeah. On a good note though, the Cyclones are 6-0 for the first time in almost 100 years.
Yep. So maybe we'll start talking about the Cyclones more often.
Yeah, top 10 team.
Because we're starting to sound like fake fans with how well they've been playing. We only mention talk about them like every once in a while, but guys, I promise we talk about the Cyclones off screen. This is just our NFL show.
Yeah, and we'll mention some college football here and there, but Cliff Notes on the Cyclones is, I mean, they're just the best team in the Big 12.
Yeah, and we were talking about it before we got on that they are out. I think still outside of the Utah game, they're going to be favored in every game the rest of the way.
I would say the Utah game is almost definitely now they're going to be favored. Without Cam Rising, I think that Utah team is just not good.
That is true because we've seen them play without him, and they have not been playing great with Isaac Wilson back there. We were making some jokes about him being the quarterback. Honestly, it kind of sucks that we don't get to play Oklahoma State because now all like the Iowa fans, because we used to always hate on Iowa for being 10-2 in the Big Ten West, and frankly, we don't play a lot. We don't play. Our Big 12 schedule is not great, but still.
Well, they play Texas Tech, who is a top
That'll
3
be a good
team.
game. Yeah,
That's a
that'll be
top
good.
3 team in the Big 12, and Kansas State, who's probably the number 2.
And I think, after they beat West Virginia, I think West Virginia is still a good team. Like they'll make a bowl game. They'll be good this year. I think that is like people are not understanding that how good of a win that is, especially on the road.
Yeah, they haven't won on the road against them in like
The last couple times.
The Matt Campbell era, maybe.
Yeah. And that was like my roommates were talking about it, and it was after West Virginia scored their touchdown and we had to punt. One of my roommates was like, "Oh boy, like this is embarrassing." And I'm like, "Just wait." They were in this, but like Iowa State used to be in this position where it's like you're the underdog, you got your Cold Rush jerseys on, blackout, everyone's there, and you're the, like I said, you're the underdog. You're going to give your best fight, but the top dog always prevails, and that's what happened.
Which I don't think that BYU is a top dog. I know everybody's like, "Oh, they're undefeated. Oh, BYU, they're they actually look good this year."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just wait. If they make it to the Big 12 championship against Iowa State
will win
50-0.
And BYU has looked really good at home. We need to remember that Iowa State went to BYU last year and spanked them.
Oh yeah, in the early hours of the morning.
Yeah, when they're playing when the game started at like 9:30 BYU or Iowa time.
Oh, I didn't think it was over until like 2 a.m.
No, yeah, I remember because I had to edit our reporter's story. I had to stay up for that. Well, edit,
Had to stay up, even though I was at our editor-in-chief's and we both fell asleep and didn't get it published. I was over at our editor-in-chief's watching that game.
I was at home.
So we didn't make it. We didn't make it through the game because I think I woke up at like.
So Andrew didn't publish it.
Yeah, right. I woke up at like 2:30 a.m. and I was like, "Oh, Andrew, wake up! You gotta publish the story."
Yeah, which is just as simple as like I had already edited all of it, and I'm sure Andrew just went.
Yep. But
yeah, but Cyclones, they got UCF this week, who just benched their quarterback last week, who for rightfully so because he's been playing terrible, KJ Jefferson. I hope that the big thing, honestly, is like we always praise Iowa State fans, but sometimes when the game's at home, honestly, they don't really show out. I'm hoping to get another great game or great crowd from Iowa State. I mean, I won't be there, but I think they're doing a blackout, so that'll be cool. And even though it's UCF, we still got to get up for it.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing is, can't get complacent.
Yeah, like this is where the best teams, they stomp on their opponents. They don't like we shouldn't let UCF hang around, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
And then is it Texas Tech? Or no, I think it might be a bye week for Iowa State the week after, and then Texas Tech. Or no,
I think they've already had their bye weeks. Everybody keeps saying, "Don't they have a bye week this week?"
No, I think no, because they get 2. You get in college, you get 2. They had one after the Arkansas State game, and then they'll have one more.
Okay, yeah. So they get a bye week next week.
After the UCF game?
Yeah.
Okay, and then it's Texas Tech and then Kansas? Or is it the other way around?
Yep, Texas Tech, Kansas.
Gotcha.
Texas Tech at home.
Texas Tech in Ames?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. That'll be good. They'll need that. And then Cincinnati, Utah, Kansas State?
Yep.
There you go. And that Kansas State game will be good too. Kansas State's actually looking pretty good. They got a nice win against Colorado on the road.
Yeah, Colorado's been looking pretty good too.
Better than last year.
Surprised they haven't been ranked, considering how, like...
I mean, their wins aren't against...
They were to enter the rankings last year after, like, one win.
Well, that's because they beat TCU, who was coming off a national championship game, but that ended up being a bad TCU team. So...
Yeah.
It's awesome. And Colorado, the reason they're not ranked is because their wins haven't been against great teams.
Yeah, because they're against Big 12 teams.
Yeah.
Tough conference. Anyways, I think that's. I mean, do you have any more? I think that's all I got for the crowd
No, I'm
here.
all good. I'm all good here. Around about 2 hours like we usually do, but maybe another episode for us sometime later this week.
Yeah, possibly.
Possibly. Maybe after Thursday night. We'll see. But yeah, thanks again for tuning in, guys. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time.